Hey everybody, welcome into a special edition of this is what we call a throwback. Okay, this is a throwback. This is a throwback to the OG3 that hosted a draft show. What is it? Almost 3 years ago now. Joe Marino, Kyle Kratz, guys, how's it feel? Feels it's dust ourselves off a little bit. It's been a while since the three of us have been on camera. What's going on?
Joe, you want to?
Yeah,
I was just going to say, I'm going to have a nice little red here
Well,
and enjoy the
nothing's
pregame
changed.
festivities and
Yeah, nothing's changed
knock
for
the rust
Kyle,
off.
right? So he's
No.
he's still over there having a drink, so that nothing's changed on that end. Joe, how you doing over there?
Paige, I'm doing well. I wasn't informed until recently that you were hosting tonight, so what a pleasant surprise this is. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I was gonna make Kyle sit in the host chair with the scouts, right? And I said, Kyle, let me ask you something. Do you want to host this, or do you want to have a throwback? And it very quick. I don't even think I got the question out before he's like, "Come on, let's do a throwback." And I was like, "All right,
One more time.
let's
We'll get the
one
gang
more
together.
time."
Let's go.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, we are doing a little twist, not a live mock for the 2022 class. We kind of want to wait and let the quarterbacks maybe figure themselves out a little bit. So we're going to wait on the live mocks, right? We're going to wait on that scenario. And what we're going to do is we're going to redraft 2021, and we're going to look at this from the lens of, because I already know where this is going to head, right? I talked to Kyle on the phone about this earlier. I already know people are going to pull clips in 6 months and they're going to be like, look at what they said. And I'm saving us right up at the top. We are looking at this knowing we just had training camp and preseason. That's it, right? Haven't seen one NFL game happen live in action. What we are going into this with is, okay, we know what's happened now in the offseason. We know what injuries have happened. We know what certain scenarios have played out for teams. How would we draft differently knowing what we know now? So guys, I'll start things off with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I do not think I'm going to get either one of you giving me a thumbs up that we should talk about this, but feel free. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, I'm guessing we can move right along. Any arguments?
Keep it.
Yeah, Trevor looked great in his kind of tune-up game, and obviously they had the pick of the litter, and I think that's probably going to be a prevalent theme with all the quarterbacks is you have the opportunity to pick your guy. I think maybe the back half of the first round quarterbacks, we might see that narrative shift a little bit and then maybe go a little earlier with how good they've looked, but no reason for Jacksonville to change in my mind.
That's kind of what I figured, and I don't anticipate the next pick getting any bit of change here as well. But I will tee it up. Joe, I'll let you take it first. Are we changing the pick at number 2 of Zach Wilson to the New York Jets?
No, I think the Jets should be really happy with what they saw from Zach Wilson during the preseason and just looked like he was very comfortable. And I think that says a lot for the work that he's put in to get himself prepared to execute this offense. And while I don't think the Jets are going to have a ton of success this year as a team, they should be really excited about this quarterback that they have in Zach Wilson. And, based on what we know so far, it looks like it's on the right track.
Looks like it's on the right track for sure. And I know Jets fans are hoping that they're going to take a huge step forward. I'd say calm your Jets. Okay, I'm gonna make a dad joke right off. Cool your Jets over there, right? I'm gonna make a dad joke right up at the top. Now's where it gets interesting, gentlemen, because I assume that there may be a little discussion here at the number 3 overall spot. Now that is San Francisco. Obviously, we know selected Trey Lance with the 3rd overall selection in this last draft. Now, we've seen a Mac Jones preseason now. We've seen a Justin Fields preseason now. I know for a fact that Justin Fields was our QB2 for TDN. So I'm trying to tempt you guys here with this 3rd overall pick. So Kyle and Joe, I'll go to Kyle first. Kyle, are you changing the selection of Trey Lance at 3 to the San Francisco 49ers?
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Listen,
I hit you with the Nick Saban. This was San Francisco's guy. They made this move to go up and get Trey Lance, and you knew that this was going to be a long-term projection. And 17 career starts, 1 game in 2020. I don't think it should come as a surprise that he was boom or bust in the preseason. Bears select Trey Lance. We didn't do no trade for Trey Lance here. San Francisco.
No Trey Lance. I want Justin Fields. Calm down over there. Calm down over
that
there.
might be a big ask for you, Paige. I don't know.
We'll cross that bridge in a couple picks, I'm sure. But yeah, this was Kyle Shanahan's guy. And I think they're going to find usages for him very early in the season, probably in the red zone, and kind of create some of those nightmare game planning situations. And as the season goes, it'll kind of be the Lamar Jackson thing when he was there as a rookie in Baltimore, where by the end of the season, I would not be surprised to see Trey Lance succeed. Jimmy Garoppolo is the starting quarterback, but this is going to be a process and it'll be incremental. And I don't think anybody should have expected Trey, with his high floor and low ceiling, to come in and blow the doors off preseason the way that maybe a Mac Jones did with a higher floor as a passer, or Justin Fields.
Joe, come on. I'm tempting you. You don't want anything? You don't want to change this selection? You're staying kosher with Trey Lance?
You know what's interesting is the first two teams that picked and they got their quarterbacks, they earned those picks, right? They were the number 1, number 2 picks. San Francisco has the most invested in a quarterback of any team that went in on a quarterback. And so given the convictions that they had when they made this trade and they got Trey Lance, despite him only being a 1-year starter at North Dakota State, they knew what they were getting into. And to me, there's no compelling information that would suggest they should move off of that pick at this point or have any type of buyer's remorse.
Okay. No buyer's remorse, even though we've seen a very good preseason from Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Listen, I'm fine with it. It's not what I would do, but you guys are the ones making the picks, so I'm going to let you guys roll with your selections. I think if we are ever going to put any confidence in an NFL organization to figure out offense, it's probably Kyle Shanahan and this offense and John Lynch and what they've done thus far. Kyle Shanahan made C.J. Beathard look like a competent quarterback for moments, so if you can do that, you can truly do anything. I think that's where we sit with this overall. Now, this one is interesting to me, right? The Atlanta Falcons at 4, right? And this is, I think the big discussion point here is, guys, we love Kyle Pitts. I think we all know where TDN sat with Kyle Pitts. We were all in. He's an athletic freak. All that being said, Matt Ryan is at the latter half of his career. We now know what Justin Fields, again, and Mac Jones are. This has got to be a conversation. They also need other pieces on this team. So, Joe, I'll let you take this one first. Are you staying with Kyle Pitts at 4, or are you moving on and picking a different selection here for the Falcons?
Couple things here. First of all, can the three of us have a conversation without C.J. Beathard coming up? Like, is that a tradition that just has to be part of every conversation that ever exists between the three of us? Isn't that like the most random thing? C.J. Beathard, every friggin' time we talk. So here's what I want to do here. I want to bring up this idea. Paige, your Bears, they're not getting Justin Fields if they don't move way up the board. So I think Kyle and I are kind of working together on this. My suggestion is Chicago pay up, and I'm talking multiple first-round picks, or I'll just sit here and pick Kyle Pitts. We'll be happy with that.
Listen, this makes me uncomfortable, a little flustered here, okay, because I feel like this is now like more of a real scenario than it actually was. It feels like I'm actually sitting in the GM chair. And, you know, in all reality, would I have given up a lot of picks that it would take to get up to 4 to get Justin Fields? You damn right I would have. So go ahead, gentlemen. Tell me what I'm giving up, because whatever it is, the answer is yes. Justin Fields, my QB, totally in, moving up, don't care. All gas, no brakes, Justin Fields. Tell me what I'm giving up. Just let me know, and the answer is yes.
Well, I think
it's
we start with
it's probably going to be the Trey Lance package with 1 or 2 players off your roster. Because San Francisco came up from 12, like a Roquan Smith, maybe 3 first-round picks.
I think we know what the Russell Wilson scenario was going to look like, right? The Russell Wilson scenario was like Roquan Smith and Khalil Mack and 3 ones, right? Like it was like, it was so bad, right? It was like so bad that it made me uncomfortable. I remember having this argument with Kyle. We knew it was going to be 2 massive starters and just an exorbitant amount of picks, right? Like something ridiculous like that. I don't think we can't say Justin Fields is Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's also, 33 years old, different start point of his career. He did have a regression in the second half of the season. I know nobody wants to talk about, but he wasn't very good. And so I think that's where I go, okay, the Trey Lance package I'm comfortable with because I like Justin Fields more than I like Trey Lance. So I'm good with it.
Let me propose this. I want, and we'll make both of our coordinators happy here. I want David Montgomery. I want Eddie Jackson. I want your first round pick this year in 2022 and 2023. I think that's a realistic. I mean, we're going way back here, folks. We're going way back.
That's true.
We're Atlanta. We need to jumpstart this rebuild.
16 picks is massive. That's a massive drop.
Yeah.
You're not getting Justin Fields in any other scenario. It's not happening.
I know you. Listen, I knew you two were going to make this miserable for me. Okay. I came into this knowing that you two were going to tag team this scenario and make it absolutely miserable for me. And you picked probably my favorite player on the team in Eddie Jackson. And I love Eddie. And he's a brand guy for Kyle. So I know that that's a big deal for TDN. I have to say, yes, we're greenlighting it. Chicago moving up, selecting Justin Fields. Sorry, Eddie. Sorry, David. It's Justin Fields. It's a quarterback. We need him. Got to have it. Never had a good quarterback in 100 years of play as an NFL organization. It's almost statistically impossible to be that bad at choosing quarterbacks. So I can't possibly think of Justin Fields not being on the roster. So I'm doing it. Chicago's up. I think
it's a pretty reasonable package here in terms of the things that Atlanta definitely needs and what they want to be. You have Dean Pease coming over for Tennessee. He wants his Kevin Byard over the top free safety. He gets that in Eddie Jackson. You know, Arthur Smith wants his bell cow back. You know, and Mike Davis will be fine to get him by, but David Montgomery showed a lot of flashes last year, plus the draft capital and the quarterback tax. I think it was a pretty reasonable package to kind of present here for this experiment.
Listen, it was pretty reasonable in the experiment, but I just want to say that as much as I have dunked on Ryan Pace in the past, brother, take a bow because you did not give up all that to get up in the draft. You gave up very little in comparison. So this is the one moment where I can not make fun of you for Mitchell Trubisky and actually give you some credit. So before this turns into a Bears show, we will move on to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who are at 5, which is another very interesting conversation, guys, because this has been the topic of the offseason, right? And I've seen it. There is a compilation video of all the Ja'Marr Chase drops from the preseason. Okay, that is where we currently sit with the Cincinnati Bengals and their selection. So we know they need offensive line help. We know that was a serious consideration. I know that for a fact, that it was a serious consideration from the organization on protecting Joe Burrow. They choose to go Ja'Marr Chase. Kyle, I'll let you take it first. Are you sticking with Ja'Marr Chase, or are you going to protect Joe Burrow? Are you going some other direction? Because I think, quite frankly, there's a lot of ways you could take this pick at 5.
Yeah, I think the compelling thing here is when you take into account how PENEI Sewell has looked for Detroit, he hasn't looked particularly good. And that's the other name that you'd probably first think of here if we were going to open this conversation up to be anybody but Ja'Marr Chase. Now, you could get into, okay, well, RASHAWN Slater, he's got all the positional versatility in the world. So I guess that would be my first question for Joe is I would like to at least entertain possibly making a different selection because this appears to be a really deep wide receiver class. We liked it beforehand, and us using the benefit of hindsight, and we're openly admitting that right now. If you know some of the players who are around at the beginning of the second round in the wide receiver room, would it interest you to go with an offensive lineman and potentially not even PENEI Sewell, which, you know, we heard some people like Daniel Jeremiah was alluding to in the build up to the draft, and DJ's as plugged in as anybody as far as potential intel that was a realistic possibility.
So courtesy of Paul Denner Jr. on Twitter, he shared some comments from Ja'Marr Chase today, which was the first time he spoke to the media since the drops surfaced. And Kyle, this is what he said about the drops. Lack of focus, not watching the football into my hands. And he talked about the ball being larger and not having the white stripes to focus on as it spins. That's concerning to me because, brother, when you made this decision to opt out of the season, you knew what that ball was going to look like. You probably should have spent some time catching a football like the one you're going to get paid a lot of money to do in the NFL. And so, sir, I am in on changing this pick,
let's go.
And I am in on considering an offensive lineman not named PENEI Sewell. you and I are both serious about protecting quarterbacks. We know the importance of that.
Yes.
And based on what we know now, that's the whole benefit of doing this. I like what I see in Rashawn Slater. I want to keep Joe Burrow upright, and I think that's our best choice right now.
Let's do it.
I think we
Let's
got.
take Rashawn Slater.
I was like, I love this, guys, because I think this was a very, very large debate at the TDN HQ going back and forth on what was going to happen there and what would be good for this team. And listen, hindsight as of right now doesn't look great for what Cincinnati did. Now, listen, Jamar Chase could turn out to be an excellent football player. But as Joe said, you have an entire offseason to prepare, and your comments are that you weren't prepared for what you already knew was going to be the case. That's not exactly a great comment if you're the head coach. That's not a great comment if you're the GM. And I don't care if he's a Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter. If you can't protect Joe Burrow, nobody's getting the football. And it does not matter who is standing on the outside. So that is a big concern as we move forward for Cincinnati. But now it's time to talk about the Miami Dolphins. And Kyle, I'm not even going to pretend like I should go to Joe here first. So go ahead. Are you taking your boy Jaylen Waddle, who shout out in fantasy communities? This is a guy we all like a lot to play impact right away for this Miami Dolphins roster.
Yeah, I really think he is tailor-made for Tua Tagovailoa. But what the interesting conflict is in the build-up to the pre-draft, I thought that was the case, but I also thought Kyle Pitts was the most unique and dynamic threat. And the Dolphins drafted Hunter Long in the 3rd round. So it's not even like tight end you could just cross off and say, oh, well, they got Mike Gesicki, they're good. Gesicki's in a contract here. So I think that's, for me, where this conversation goes. I don't think there's any doubt this needs to be a weapon for Tua Tagovailoa. I know they're excited about what they have in Will Fuller. Albert Wilson coming back from opting out and looking really, really good, I think opens the door with Kyle Pitts here in their laps, maybe just taking the more unique player. I think from a BPA perspective, and it really hurts me to suggest not drafting Jaylen Waddle, who was TDN's wide receiver 1 and a top 5 prospect, but Kyle Pitts was like a top 3 prospect. And I think he's a little bit more unique and a real mismatch player. So with that in mind, I'd probably point to Kyle Pitts. And then if the Dolphins want to go with a speed receiver, they could do that on day 2, once again, knowing the depth of the wide receiver class in this year's class.
Do you want to give any consideration to PENEI Sewell now that he's available and he would play left tackle for Miami, presumably?
Well, no, he wouldn't. He'd play right tackle. They would draft him.
So you had the same problem.
Side, Austin Jackson's there was a 1st-round pick in 2020, and he hasn't looked good, but they're not going to punt on him on 1 year. And I think that's the big difference between where Cincinnati's at with their offensive line and where Miami's at with theirs is, well, Miami dumped 4 top 4 draft picks into their offensive line before the 2021 NFL draft, in which they traded up for Liam Eichenberg. So they have 5 offensive linemen on the roster that were 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round selections since 2019. They have invested. And for Cincinnati, it's more they've been pursuing veterans, and obviously now the decision to draft Jackson Carman in the 2nd round versus a 1st-round pick. So, no, I don't think PENEI Sewell, with how raw he was, and he'd still have to play right tackle because that's what they did with Liam Eichenberg, who started 39 games at Notre Dame at left tackle. They still moved him over to the right side. So
Pitts it is then, huh?
I was going to say, so it's Kyle Pitts. So you're punting your guy, Jaylen Waddle, to the side. Jaylen,
I'm not
very
punting.
Sorry.
Stop.
Very sorry, Jaylen. Okay, listen, your guy, he's already dipped out on you. He's moving on to a new guy, and he's picking Kyle Pitts, staying in the state of Florida. I think he would have been a fan favorite. That probably would have been the fan base probably would have lost their minds having Kyle Pitts there at that position. But final, Kyle Pitts, you're saying goodbye to Jaylen Waddle.
Yep.
Just want to make sure. Okay, it's on the Chiron, so it's over. You can't change your mind now. So we're moving on. Detroit Lions, their selection still on the board, but they are a team that is very wide receiver needy. They lost all of their wide receivers in the offseason to free agency. So is this a scenario where now, if Jamar Chase, are we thinking Jaylen Waddle? Are we thinking we may change direction here now that both top receivers are? Joe, you're shaking your head yes, so I'm going to you first. Where are they going, Detroit Lions?
To me, it's Jaylen Waddle. I mean, you've seen PENEI Sewell in the struggles he's had at right tackle, and I have a ton of optimism that PENEI Sewell is going to be an outstanding offensive lineman. But if you are that committed to Taylor Decker at left tackle and you're going to force PENEI to play right tackle, let's go ahead and get ourselves a wide receiver right now. And Jaylen Waddle presents something that group does not have, and that's that speed dynamic, and that it's that yards after catch ability, a true 3-level threat, a big-time playmaker in so many different ways. And so I feel like they kind of need to pick Jaylen Waddle in this scenario since he's available and really fills out what they need at that wide receiver spot.
Well, and then never mind the fact that him as a run after catch threat and putting that into what they need for Jared Goff, where you think about, like, right now it's Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hockenson. Those are the top 2 receiving threats right now in Detroit. So to have somebody who can take the short game and turn it into long gains, I think that's something that Jared Goff got a lot of in Los Angeles that he ain't going to have that in Detroit this year. And I think that's going to be a pretty rough transition. So I think Waddle can really help that.
Jared, let me tell you this right now here, pal, as somebody who's watched the NFC North for her entire life, it's not going to ever be like LA. I don't know. This transition for Jared Goff is going to be real ugly because it's not sitting pretty in Detroit moving forward, which, as you guys know, will be music to my ears to continue to have the Detroit Lions as a absolute W on the schedule each and every year. Moving right along, Carolina Panthers. Joe, you're out in Carolina. You're paying attention to this one. I think obviously we know they went with Jaycee Horn at the 8th overall selection. It's actually one of my, if you haven't watched the YouTube series, Carolina Panthers did a really good one, and you got a really close up and personal story behind why they went that direction and his draft moment, and it was actually really good. So all that being said, are you going to stick with Jaycee Horn, or are you going to go in a different direction? What are your thoughts here?
I'm conflicted because I don't think there's any reason to. I don't think there's any reason to come off the pick. But
remind me that stat about.
You knew it was coming,
Carolina
Kyle.
Left tackles. Remind me that stat.
The Carolina Panthers have had a different primary starter at left tackle every season since Jordan Gross retired in 2013. And guess what?
Oh, no.
They're slated to start Cameron Irving at left tackle this year.
So
we could get this all solidified. Now. Well, and here's, I think I convinced myself, not that I wasn't aware of that statistic because I bring it up every opportunity I can. You have invested in Sam Darnold here to be your guy. And you got to make sure that you give him a fair opportunity to prove that he is or isn't, right? This is like a 2-year situation. And right now they're going to have like Cam Irving and Pat Elflein as the left side of that offensive line with John Miller at right guard. I mean, Sam's not going to have an opportunity to showcase what he is. Now, obviously, you love McCaffrey. You love the weapons with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Like, all of that's amazing. But I don't think they have but 1 or 2 actual starting caliber offensive linemen. I think we have to consider PENEI Sewell here.
I think it is.
Kyle, this has to be that. I was going to say that has to be the most outrageous stat of that they've been. That's ridiculous to think that you're going to have long-term success changing the chemistry of the offensive line that often, and also knowing what you're going to what you invested in Sam Darnold, and the fact that Sam is going to need that help for him to be able to actually get a fair evaluation this year. So, Kyle, PENEI Sewell, that's where we're going for the Carolina Panthers.
Yes. We're going to end this damn stat about Carolina Panthers left tackles once and for all, because by the time it gets settled, it's going to be at least a decade, because Cam Irving's not going to stick long term. And he's probably, they're going to see him this year. They're going to say, we probably need somebody else in there.
That's outrageous. A decade of time doing that is, no, that's not good. Not good news for long-term health / long-term success for your quarterback. All right, this one I've been looking forward to talking about because Denver Broncos fans, man, you were all in on Drew Lock coming into the process here, right? We went back, we searched, we had a jersey swap of Justin Fields in a Broncos uniform, And man, y'all had a lot to say about that. And it's interesting that the birds are chirping a lot less now that Teddy Bridgewater beat out Drew Lock for the starting job in Denver. So, guys, now that we know this, now that we've seen Mac Jones, he is still available on the board. We know that the Patriots obviously moved up to select him, but this is earlier on. Are you sticking with Pat Surtain here, or are you going to change off of that selection? Obviously, it doesn't have to be Mac Jones. I just think that's the most interesting discussion point here. Now that we know that this team, who considers themselves to be in a Super Bowl window with that defense, has no direction at the most important position in sports, quarterback. So, Joe, you first. What are you doing here? Are you moving off of the pick of Pat Surtain to the Broncos?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that for sure, because I've got a lot of really nice young talent in terms of offensive weapons with Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Javonte Williams, and Teddy Bridgewater is my starting quarterback. You're not going to maximize that talent. You are wasting that talent on your roster. We have to go get Mac Jones right now.
Kyle, are you agreeing, disagreeing? I think I'm in agreement with you, Joe. I think the biggest thing there is you just named off all those offensive weapons. What an absolute waste of this time frame to not have that position, and really to hitch your wagon to the fact that you were going to be in on the Aaron Rodgers stuff, because that was a big part of this. Was Denver was really thinking they were going to be able to pull that off. We now know that that's not happening. So Kyle, hindsight, that's the rule for this redraft. What are you doing here for Denver?
Yeah, I think what stands out the most to me when Joe kind of goes through the list of the weaponry that's there in Denver, and you think about the Alabama quarterback who came through the year prior in Tua Tagovailoa, and some of his struggles were he didn't have a lot of talent to work with in the skill positions. And then I look at what he has in New England, and there's no doubt from a scheme perspective, New England's a great scheme fit for Mac Jones. But I think for a talent translation to the NFL level, Denver's probably a better scheme translation fit for Mac than what New England is, because Alabama does a bunch of 11 personnel and they spread you out and they run vertically down the field. And you got Jeudy, who obviously playing at Alabama, and Hamler with his explosiveness. And like, I just think this is a really good personnel fit for Mac Jones. And if I didn't feel that way, I don't think I would advocate to take a quarterback just for the sake of taking a quarterback. But because Denver has so many dynamic weapons at their disposal that can help Mac Jones translate and play probably a similar style of ball to what he played at Alabama, I can get on board with this.
You can get on board with it. I think it has to happen, right? And I think Broncos fans, feel free to get angry in the comments section or tell us later on via Twitter that you're upset that we did that. But I think it's at a certain point, you have to have a come to Jesus moment. My mom will tell you that. You got to have a moment where you just really recognize where you are. Denver, you do not have the quarterback of the future. Now, number 10 here, the Dallas Cowboys. We now know the Philadelphia Eagles moved into this selection and took DeVonta Smith. So that is not the scenario that's playing out right here, right? Unless you guys wanted to, obviously. I have a feeling that that is not what you guys are going to choose to do. So Dallas Cowboys sitting here, number 10 on the clock. Guys, Kyle, I'll let you go first here. What are you doing? You gonna stand pat at 10 and take the best player available? And if so, who is it?
Well, I want to get inside the head of the Eagles first as the team that potentially would be trading up based on what happened in reality. And DeVonta Smith's still on the board, but you know who else is still on the board? Jamar Chase. You're looking at Jaycee Horn and Patrick Surtain have managed to fall to 10. So if I'm Philadelphia, I feel a lot better about my options as far as my primary positions of need, and having some players that are going to be available for me no matter what at 12, no matter what happens out in front of me. So I think that would shut down any interest from my perspective of Philadelphia giving up additional picks to go up. This is a much more favorable draw of the board for them, with Chase still on the board as well. As far as Dallas is concerned, we saw them really go after and pursue a lot of long physical corners. And when I think long physical corners, the cream of the crop in this past year's class was probably Jaycee Horn, who was the top corner off the board. So instead of guys like Nashawn Wright, who they drafted in the 3rd round, why don't we get a guy who we feel really, really good about and played at a high level at the SEC and draft JC Horn here at 10 instead of they eventually would go on at 12 to draft Micah Parsons.
Joe, any disagreement there? Or are you sticking with this selection? Because I think this makes a lot of sense. The board fell a lot differently because we all moved up for quarterbacks, right? That's what everybody was hoping would play out. It didn't play out like that during the draft. Justin Fields, Mac Jones fall out of the top 10, and this is a scenario that does not play out for these teams. So I'm assuming you're good with what Kyle did, knowing you're getting good value at this position here at 10.
I agree, and I like how Kyle kind of took this from the Philadelphia, mindset of the reason that they wanted to move up the board. Well, the reason Dallas was wanting to move back is because neither JC Horn or Patrick Surtain were available. So, yeah, they're going to sit here and want to make this pick. And so if Kyle thinks it's Horn, let's go Horn.
Kyle thinks it's Horn. Okay, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at number 11, the New York Giants, right? I'm looking at it, and I'm going, oh, my heart's skipping a beat. I'm thinking about what happened during the actual draft, but I already got Justin Fields, so there's no need for us to have to facilitate the trade that actually happened. Okay, we don't need to get that. We can just talk about the New York Giants, who, guys, I think it's safe to say there are quite a few needs for this team. A team that is kind of lacking a direction, still trying to figure out what they got going on with Daniel Jones. This feels like kind of the last year from an evaluation standpoint with him. So Kyle, knowing that they're going into this year, they're making sure they want to give their best opportunity for him to be able to get a fair evaluation. What are you going to do here for the New York Giants? Are you going to trade out? Are you going to stand pat? What's the scenario that plays out here, knowing that the Bears already traded up and got Justin Fields?
Well, I can tell you I'm not going to trade back to 20 and draft Kadarius Toney. Now, Dave Gettleman did a great job picking up a future first-round pick with that swap for Justin Fields. But what was the catalyst of New York moving back? And it was one of the names who went right in front of them at 10, Philadelphia, motivated to get up in front of the Giants. And it was a lot of buzz between the Giants and DeVonta Smith. So DeVonta Smith, in reality, went at 10 with Philadelphia, jumping the Giants. I think now, because Dallas doesn't have incentive to move out, and there's the Jamar Chase slip outside the top 10 has happened in this redraft, you have an opportunity here if you're the Giants to go with the player that you are very, very commonly connected to in the 2 weeks before the draft. That's the wide receiver that I want to give, because they did go out and they did get Kenny Golladay in free agency, so they have some size. So now it's just, okay, who do you feel like excites you the most? And it seemed like in the pre-draft buzz that was going to be DeVonta Smith.
Joe, you good with DeVonta Smith here?
I want to bring up another idea.
Okay.
Because
love this.
I think certainly the Giants could consider a weapon, but I think the bigger concern right now with the Giants, I don't think they're sitting around right now worried that Kadarius Toney might not be able to help them this year. I think they're nervous about their offensive line. And between Elijah VERA-TUCKER, who could immediately be an answer for them at guard, or Sam Cosmi, who's going to be a day one starter for the Washington football team and has looked so good that they were willing to move on from Morgan Moses, I think you have two starting caliber offensive linemen that would address the bigger need right now in New York. And so just like we did for, was it the Bengals? We know that there's depth to this wide receiver class. We can get help there later on. We got to get the offensive linemen now. And I think there's only two guys left here that solve a starting position right away, and that's AVT and Sam Cosmi.
I think, too, before you give a yay or nay here, you also have to remember the amount of draft capital used for Saquon Barkley, right? You want to be able to run the football, establish the run, have good offensive line, have a fair evaluation. Because if this is going to get real ugly for New York really quickly, right? If they can't get it together, at least take a step forward this year. And I think hindsight, I'm with Joe. I think the offensive line needs the upgrade so that you can run the football, you can protect Daniel Jones, hopefully help him with all those damn fumbling issues that he's had over the last couple of years. Kyle, you're getting all upset over there. You don't like it, but I think I'm going to use my veto power for Joe if you don't jump on board. So this is your chance to jump on board. Otherwise, I'm going to officially veto this one and go Joe's side.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Oh, So Paige, who we going? You want the guard or the tackle? Cosme or VERA-TUCKER?
I want VERA-TUCKER. I want VERA-TUCKER. That's who I'm going with. So the Elijah VERA-TUCKER, that's the official selection. Kyle, sorry, you've been vetoed. Me and Joe aligning. That feels natural, like a normal thing that's been happening for a long time. Yeah. So we'll talk to you later. Kyle's left the stream. I think, listen, you gotta be able to protect Daniel Jones, and you gotta be able to run the football. So sorry, Kyle. No Jamar Chase here. That's not happening.
Kyle, would you agree with me though? Like, in terms of what do you think right now, Dave Gettleman, Joe Judge, are they more nervous about Kadarius Toney not being an answer for them this year, or that they don't have a starting caliber guard or tackle on the roster?
Well, then why did we move Kevin Zeitler?
It's a question for Dave Gettleman to answer to God on that.
They made that decision. If they made that decision and they wanted Devonta Smith, that's the direction that I would have chose to go, is to stay within the mindset that you perceived they were in when they were making this decision to trade out of this pick. So I get it. I think there might have been an opportunity in round 2 to take Liam Eichenberg, who they traded back out of with the Dolphins to pick up Liam Eichenberg in the second round. They traded out of 42, went back to 50 with Miami, and picked up an extra 3 in the future to make that swap. So I do think there were opportunities a little later in the draft. So I would have stayed true to what their mentality was, but that's okay. I'm only in the minority.
Saving them from themselves.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, Joe and I are trying to save them from the stupidity that is Dave Gettleman and the Giants drafting over the last, several years. So we're saving you from yourselves and giving you a pretend universe in which we make a smart decision for the New York Giants. So you're welcome.
I got a question real quick. Would there have been any consideration for Alex Leatherwood? Guard and tackle experience, definitely fits their hog mollies up front kind of MO.
I wouldn't. And, Paige brought up Elijah VERA-TUCKER as the choice because I think we wanted that help on the interior. There's at least young talent at tackle for the Giants. It just has to develop. At guard right now, they don't really have that, and AVT is really, really good.
Alex could play guard. He played guard at Alabama.
I have VERA-TUCKER higher.
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. The veto power is staying again, so you're getting vetoed twice in the same pick. You didn't even know we could do it, but we did. You're welcome. You're welcome, New York. I'm just spitballing. That's all right. All right, Philadelphia on the clock at 12. Obviously, in this scenario, they are staying pat. They did not move up. Kyle, you look like you have something to say, so I'm just going to go to you first. What are you doing here? What's happening for Philadelphia? Seeing as this team. Yep, staying pat. Yeah, doing exactly what they did. Just didn't have to move up. Okay, all right. Joe, are you gonna take Devonta Smith, knowing what we know now?
I'm okay with it.
He's giving you no reason to change your mind.
Come on.
He's given us no reason to change my mind, but the scenario does give me reason to change my mind because there's a receiver I like better in Jamar Chase that's available, and there's corners, right? Like you could sit here and you could pick Pat Surtain. And we got to be honest about what Darius Slay has been. He hasn't been good in 3 years. And they just signed Steven Nelson off the street to be the starter opposite of him. They could get Pat Surtain right now. That's what I would bring up right now. But I do also think there's a case to be made that there's no reason to come off of Devonta Smith.
So, Kyle, hear me out here. Okay, hear me out. Not what the Eagles' mentality is, but what is best for the football team, right? That's the lens. What is best for the football team if front office 33, aka you, me, and Joe are sitting here and we're making all these selections? What is the best decision here? Because I don't know that that's Devonta Smith. I understand that that's what they would have done because that's who they like, but also I like the Surtain stuff. I think there's an argument to be made. So I'm not making my veto power yet. I'm just trying to lead you to the water. Okay, so Paige, let me know what you think.
I'll come back and say this. What did you just get done saying was very important for the Giants to do with Daniel Jones? Provide him with the talent to evaluate whether or not he is the answer at quarterback. That same question exists with Jalen Hurts. They just made a quarterback transition. They have 3 first-round picks. provided Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps this year, which is no sure thing, but it's something that's possibly available to them. And I think you need to know what you need to be doing with those picks, because it's either we have an answer in Jalen Hurts that we can build around. But let's be honest, if it's not Devonta Smith, their top 2 wide receivers are Jalen Reagor and who?
And hoping that Zach Ertz is a great tight end again. I mean, I think this team is not good, right? This roster is not good. And the only reason I argue the Giants situation is different is because the draft position in which they took Daniel Jones versus where they were with Jalen Hurts. I think they feel a little bit more pressure to make that happen and see if that can work. Like they're gonna stand their ground as long as they possibly can with Daniel Jones, where I feel like obviously with the trade that's already happened with Gardner Minshew, the Eagles are already flirting, right? Like they're already trying to figure out what they can do. So I think that's where the scenarios are different, right? Go ahead.
I got one more thing for you. You just got done saying we're going to hold off on doing live mocks until we figure out what in the heck is going on with the 2022 quarterback class. If you're the Eagles, would you not want to give Jalen Hurts the opportunity to showcase that he's the guy, so you don't have to get involved in this mess right now, with hindsight being what it is for the 2022 quarterback class too?
Joe, what are we doing here? I'm leaning to you. Listen, I'm just against Kyle now. So now he's made me his enemy. So now I'm just pro Joe in all scenarios, as is my puppy who burst into this room because he heard my voice. He heard my voice and he was like, absolutely not, Mom. I do not like what you're doing from a draft selection. He came in here to let me know. Joe, what are we doing here? We have to make a decision.
I like what Kyle said here about making sure that we've given Jalen Hurts his best chance to prove that he is or is not our quarterback. So I'm fine with a receiver here. And if you want to go Devonta Smith and you have convictions about that, that's fine. I'm higher on Jamar Chase. And so I would at least put that up there, but I'm fine with sticking with wide receiver here.
Okay. So what are we doing? Is it Jamar Chase? Or is it Devonta Smith? Are we sticking with Devonta Smith? Kyle, I'll let you call this one. Joe deferred to you, so I'm not going to fight you on it.
Well, if Joe's willing to meet me in the middle and come with a wide receiver, I'm willing to take the more dynamic, explosive, bigger wide receiver, even though there's some drop issues. If you told Eagles fans they'd get Chase at 12, they would have lost their minds, right? They were hoping for him at 6. So if they get him at 12, I understand the transition's been a little rough, but he's going to get a lot of volume in Philadelphia. He's still going to be a guy who they run the offense through. So I can get on board with Jamar Chase here.
Look at that compromise, right? Look at that. That comes from the longest standing bromance that I've been a part of to watch. You two being able to come to the middle and find a compromise and go with Jamar Chase there. So we like this one for Eagles fans. We're sorry we're tempting you with a scenario that did not play out for you in real life. But the Eagles select Jamar Chase, and we're moving right along to number 13, the LA Chargers. Guys, I think this team is so interesting to me coming into this year. I feel like I talked myself into this damn roster every season, and I don't know what water scenario they have in LA, but they have the worst injury history over the last decade that I can remember. And so I'm hoping that this team can finally stay healthy. We obviously saw a lot from Justin Herbert to like. What are we going to do here, Joe? What are we going to do for this team that has a lot to like? They have their quarterback, but there's plenty of good players left on the board here that we could go in any direction. Kyle's eyes are very big right now, so I'm waiting to see what Joe says to see what reaction.
There is a right answer here.
Woo, okay.
I think Kyle and I will settle on the right thing here. First of all, the Chargers have to be heartbroken that Rashawn Slater goes 5 in the redraft. They don't get him at 13. I still think that they can get an answer at offensive tackle, and I'm going to bring back Sam Cosmi into this conversation, a player that, we had some vibes that they were pretty high on to begin with. And so I still think they get a really nice offensive tackle, and I think that has to be a priority. I know that they, if we're assuming going into this that they haven't fixed the left tackle thing, but they did a good job in free agency of finding 3 other answers for this offensive line. Well, let's tie a ribbon on this offensive line and make sure that Justin Herbert has his left tackle to move forward with. And so we don't get Slater, but I think Sam Cosmi is still in play here.
Is that the right answer, Kyle?
Hear me out.
You said there was like,
Hear me out.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, here we go.
Patrick Surtain's still on the board.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And yes, Patrick Surtain being on the board is the only reason why I'm like, they got to go with Patrick Surtain. And they got who we anticipate is going to be a really good player at corner in Asante Samuel Jr. in the second round. But if Surtain slides to 13, like Zeke style, let's see. Let's go ahead and make this pick and lock it in.
Yeah, when I got on that soapbox there, I forgot that Patrick Surtain was still available, or else I would have went with that from the outset. But yes, it's got to be, especially in that division, man. With you got to contend with the Chiefs.
Yeah,
you better get some answers at corner. And I like Michael Davis, but man, they need more.
Man, you didn't bring up Derek Carr. You got to contend with Derek Carr. What a shot to Derek. Man, it's so rough on that offense that you're not.
Paige is just pushing our buttons to get some slander out of us, but we take care of the Raiders enough on Draft Dudes. That happens about 3 times a week.
Listen,
just
they give us enough material. They give us a lot of material, like maybe draft better, and then we wouldn't have to have these conversations. But I'm gonna pull the receipts for Jamie Eisner's comments when John Gruden got hired, because man, Raiders fans had a lot to say, and they're a little quiet recently, which has been very fun for us to pay attention to. This next team, the Minnesota Vikings, are on the clock. One of my favorite things about this draft process was sitting next to Jordan Reed. Okay, so we're sitting in Atlanta, and I'm sitting next to him right as the Bears come up and take Justin Fields, and he's looking at me and he's like, I can't believe this, right? Minnesota was thinking this might happen, this scenario might happen where Justin falls a couple picks later to them. We know they were in on that. They wanted that to happen. So I'm laughing, knowing that was like my favorite moment, was sitting with Jordan Reed and going, hey, Jordan, you going to like playing Justin Fields 2 times a year? And he's like, I can't handle this. So shout out to our boy Jordan Reed, who did not get Justin Fields and is stuck with Kirk Cousins for perpetuity. Good luck with that. At 14, what do you guys want to do here for the Minnesota Vikings? Because I think obviously they had a total change of this defense, right? So many of the guys that we got used to playing there last season were not there. They've got a lot. They've got some holes. They obviously let Stephon Diggs go, and he was a superstar for the Buffalo Bills last season. But they had Justin Jefferson, who was great. There's definitely some places to go here. So I will be curious to see what you guys decide to do. So Kyle, I'll let you go first. What are you doing for the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, Joe's got one Sam Cosmi in his pocket that's burning a hole in his pocket. So I know that's a name that's probably going to get brought up here, and I want to acknowledge that right off the jump. But I also look at defensive end, and I look at Kwity Paye, who played really well in the preseason and ended up going to the Colts in the 20s. And you think about Danielle Hunter with the injury that he had last year. They actually just brought back Everson Griffin. They've got Stephen Weatherly as a couple of their primary pass rushers. And I'm just kind of curious, Joe, like, do you like the idea of Kwity Paye as a Viking-style pass rusher off the edge? And is it enough to get you off the Sam Cosmi hill? Because I think Sam Cosmi brings some merit here, because Minnesota obviously traded back and took Christian Darrisaw. So offensive tackle we know is a need for them. I think we've got 2 really good options here between these 2 guys.
I agree with you. I think you've got it down to the right 2. I think you can maybe make a case for a corner like a Greg Newsome, but man, we gotta get right in the trenches. And so, do we want to get the pass rusher? We want to get the tackle, and I value the pass rusher. What do you do, Joe? I got to go with the pass rusher. Kwity Paye.
Minnesota has such success getting guys in the second round that I think it helps me feel better that they're going to find offensive lineman help on day 2, because that's where they like Ryan O'Neal, right? And so I'm on board with Kwity Paye.
You're on board with Kwity Paye. All right, it's not going to matter anyways because Kirk Cousins is still the quarterback. So sorry, Minnesota Vikings fans, you're still stuck with Kirk for the rest of eternity. at the 15th overall pick, the New England Patriots, right, who got to select Mac Jones. And I know this is not a positive thing for either one of my guys here, right? As a Buffalo Bills and a Miami Dolphins supporter, they are not enjoying the fact that this selection of Mac Jones in the real draft is turning out to look pretty good. But in this hypothetical draft, in this redraft, he is not there. He is not available, correct? Or is he still there at 15? I think we took him earlier, did we not?
No, we took him to Denver at 9.
Denver, that's what I thought. So I'm like, he's not there. So is New England going to trade out? Are they going to select somebody here? They obviously are not in contention for any of the top quarterbacks, and they're not getting their guy Mac Jones. So Kyle, what are you going to do here for the New England Patriots, seeing as their plan as of what happened in this draft class is not going to play out in this redraft?
I think two interesting names that are available: DeVonta Smith and Micah Parsons. Having both of those guys, I think they're very Patriots-esque style players, and those would probably be the guys on my short list. I don't know if I would necessarily look to move out of this pick or anything like that.
Joe, are you in agreement? What are you going to do here?
I think we got to go Kyle Trask here. Get that.
He's kidding. He's totally kidding.
Fingers were crossed, guys. It's okay. Fingers were crossed. I was only kidding.
You almost gave me a heart attack on camera. I was like, this is not a real.
Come on, I was playing it. You build us as Bills and Dolphins fans, and not being happy that Mac Jones looks reasonable. Yeah, I had to go a little bit different here. But Kyle, you brought up the exact two names that I would have, and I think there's merit to both. I think they would love to have a guy like DeVonta Smith that we know can run routes like he does, but they could also love to have a guy like Micah Parsons to play next to Hightower and be the successor to Hightower, where right now that guy's still Jawan Bentley. I mean, they're serious about playing Jawan Bentley as the other off-ball linebacker next to Deonta Hightower. So I am in on both. Parsons has looked so good. You maybe can throw Caleb Farley into this conversation, knowing that he's a bit of a long play and you can wait for him to get healthy. But in this scenario, you're probably having to continue with Cam Newton. And the most meaningful thing that you can do is give him that receiver. And so I think I'm leaning DeVonta Smith here.
Kyle, DeVonta Smith's final answer. All right,
yep.
We're taking our card into Roger Goodell. We're sliding it across the table, and we are selecting DeVonta Smith here for the New England Patriots. Guys, we're going to make this selection for the Arizona Cardinals, and then we're going to hop off the stream because in the least surprising thing of all time, the three of us have gone long. Okay, so it's not shocking at all that the three of us did not get through all 32 picks in an hour, and we have a very important date with Matt Corral and Ole Miss at 5 o'clock that we need to make sure we are watching. So I will probably dial in two of the other scouting staff members to come in and select the back half of this draft later this week, which I think would be very interesting, seeing as they will be stuck with the players and the selections that Kyle and Joe have decided upon. So this one, yeah, hate to see it. Sorry, gentlemen. I just signed you up for something to do later on this week, and now it's on camera. So now it's definitely happening. 16, Arizona Cardinals. Listen, I think I have been as critical as possible of the last 2 years in the Arizona Cardinals. One, because last year, I think hindsight look at Tristan Wirfs and some of the offensive line players that was there, and knowing what happened with Isaiah Simmons, even though he's had some moments in preseason, and go, yeah, it might have been nice to get a guy who's going to be a, offensive generational type talent for 10, 12 years in the NFL. They won Zaven Collins, right? And he's on the board, right? And this is such a Steve Keim pick. It's like, he's so on brand for him. Tulsa, linebacker. To me, when it happened, I went, right? I just was like, okay. All right, that's a Steve pick. So, Joe, you're kind of look like you might want to dive in on this one first. So this is our last selection, 16, Arizona Cardinals. Are you sticking with Zaven Collins, or are you going in a different direction?
Yeah, we're getting a corner for sure. I mean, Malcolm Butler's not even going to be there for him this year. They're going to have to play musical chairs with Byron Murphy to get him on the field, having to play sometimes on the outside, sometimes in the slot. You're counting on Robert Alford to be another starter for you. I mean, this is ridiculous. We got to get a cornerback, and I can be swayed on which corner. I think there's merit to Caleb Farley, Greg Newsome, first-round pick of the Browns. Asante Samuel Jr. is in play. Eric Stokes is in play. I think we got to come away with one of those four guys. So, Kyle, if you agree with me on corner, do you have convictions about any of those options?
I would just go, since we're operating in the mindset of front office 33. Who is front office 33's top corner again?
Caleb Farley.
Oh, okay. He's still on board.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I think that's probably the play we should make for Arizona here, is to get them the most talented corner that we perceive there to be. Obviously, the medical things were scary, but with the benefit of hindsight, it sounds like Caleb Farley is going to be a go for the start of the season. So with that in mind, let's lock that one in.
It's going to be rough for the Arizona Cardinals, knowing that, man, that would seem to be a beautiful opportunity to have him at corner, considering you're playing in a division with Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford, and San Francisco could pick up a guy off the streets and they're going to have a top-tier offense. It doesn't matter, right? And now they've got Jimmy G and Trey Lance. This is the toughest division probably in football, top to bottom, 1 through 4. This is a really loaded division, and I don't think what they're walking into the season with at corner is going to get it done, guys. So I think what we did here is a lot better opportunity for this team long term than what they actually did in the draft. So I'm sure I'll hear from Cardinal fans. They like to chirp, especially since I'm a Chicagoan living in Arizona. So it's routinely they're chirping and telling me what I'm doing and not doing well. So guys, this was fun, man. I love being on with the squad. I love being on with the boys. This was fun. We got to give 1 through 16. I think, gonna be honest here, guys, I think we, other than my team having to give up more than they gave in the real draft, which I don't like. I still love getting Justin Fields. Don't like that we parted with Eddie Jackson and David Montgomery and some picks. But other than that, I feel pretty good about our draft. What's the best selection that we changed? That's how I'm going to end this. What's the best selection we changed? Best thing we did that's better than what a – yeah, what's the best selection? Kyle, you're going first. I'm putting you on the spot. What's the best thing we did that would have benefited a NFL team going into the season?
Kyle Pitts. Arguably best non-quarterback available. Get him at 6 overall with a trade down from 3. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a homer pick, and I've got no shame about it.
Homer pick, but listen, when Kyle Pitts
Carolina
is a freak,
too.
Yeah, Carolina is a good scenario that played out. Joe, what is your selection of best thing we changed in this draft?
I think it's got to be Denver coming away with Mac Jones. And, Pat Surtain's going to be a great player, but he's not a quarterback. And I did my season predictions today, and I did playoffpredictors.com. I predicted every game on my own. And Denver's such a tough team because I feel like they just have everything but the most important thing, and that's a quarterback. And to me, that changes the entire dynamics of that football team. And so to me, for them to have a guy that I think can maximize the talent that they have on this offense to go with a really good defense, that's the pick that changes my perception of the team the most based on what we were able to get done tonight.
I think that one's gonna hurt Denver fans. Like, they're gonna look at that, they're gonna play it out in their heads, and they'll go, man, I really shouldn't have talked smack to Kyle Krabs when he said that we should have Justin Fields, and we put together a beautiful jersey swap. Like, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we should have been a little nicer, and maybe we would have liked having Justin Fields. I'm glad you don't, Denver, but man, oh man, I think we did them well in this redraft, and I think shout out Arizona, that would have been my pick. I think they really needed a corner, and that was a good redraft selection for the Arizona Cardinals. Joe, you got something to say? You look like you wanted to say something before we.
I feel like we've picked on Denver fans a little bit, but there's other fan bases that deserve to be part of this. Not necessarily fan bases, but teams. You have the Carolina Panthers, which they chose not to participate in these quarterbacks. The Eagles chose not to participate. So yeah, I mean, I think they're all in this conversation of you have to live with whatever Fields and Jones are because you didn't pick them and you had a chance to. And we have questions about your quarterback situation.
Yeah, I was gonna throw out to you guys to see if we wanted to get Philadelphia to move up in the mix to try and get a quarterback, right? But I think the way we had everything fall was really good, and I think it's how a lot of people thought might happen because more people going up for quarterbacks, right? And it just didn't happen that way in the real draft, which was kind of out of the ordinary based off of what we've seen over the last few seasons. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. This was great. Really excited to figure out what of the rest of the scouting staff I'm going to tee up for the back half of this draft. So that's going to be fun. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Be sure to check out everything we're doing on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're everywhere. We're very excited. It's kickoff of the NFL this week. So thanks again to Joe Marino, Kyle Krabs, and Paige DeMarcos for the Draft Network. We'll be back soon.